And for those of you who are confused about what I said earlier, according to every now and then, we always uncover something that happened to have made it into the show that was George's original idea. I have a whole video on this. And most recently, when George was at New York Comic Con, him knighting that woman. And she goes, can I be a sir? Worked for Brienne. And he goes, not in the books yet. Okay, right. Interesting. Maybe this was an idea that George had that he passed it along to Dave and Dan. Will it make it in Winds or Dream? Who the fuck knows? But it's probably something he said to Dave and Dan, and they put it in there because why the fuck not?
I'm fairly convinced that like nothing beats a good story. Is George. We know that Bran being on the throne is George.
Mm-hmm.
Hodor. Hodor, we know is George. Like, we know all of these late things. The Asha at the Dreadfort was George. So there's all these little things like that. There's various things that just seem so George, like Brienne writing in the book, like filling Jaime's like Kingsguard page. That's a fulfillment of the book for the most part. Jaime plot. So there's just a lot of things that make me say, well, yeah, no, it sounds like it was George's outline. It does. That doesn't necessarily mean it was, implemented well. And maybe just George. Here's the other thing is like George's outline is not George's writing. Like, we've done enough reviews of previous drafts of George's work where you go through and you're like, oh shit, George's first idea on some of this stuff was kind of crap, and it's good that he changed it. And the thing is, George never got that opportunity. He never got the opportunity to revise and shift and change. He just sits there with like an outline and explains it to somebody, and then it's put to screen without his own critical eye going back over it. So, because like I say, like everybody loves Jon chopping off Janos Slynt's head. And you're like, well, originally that was Jon throwing Janos Slynt off the wall and with 100-foot rope and hanging him. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's not as good. You're like, yeah, of course it's not as good. Like, George realized that too. Or like in A Clash of Kings, like the glass candles we're going to be introducing in Clash of Kings, and they were going to give all of their holders, meaning all maesters, immortality. And you're like, huh? Yeah, well, he removed it. Like, it's just...
And you're also talking about, to what you're saying in regards to Janos Slynt and how that went down. The show did make a lot of things better, and they cut out the fat on a lot of things. For example, yesterday on stream, we were talking about Jaime. And you were talking about the times Jaime thinks about Ned Stark. And I'm like, yeah, there was that one scene in Storm where he talks about, like, by what right does the wolf judge the lion? And if I recall, the show made a slight change in that moment. And I like it better in the show, because in the books, the same thing happens. Like, he like gets all, he gets all flustered and whatnot, and Brienne goes and catches him, and she goes, "Help, the Kingslayer!" In the books, it says here, Jaime, he thought, "My name is Jaime." But in the show, he actually says it out loud, "Jaime, my name is Jaime." I like that better, that he says it out loud.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of small changes like that. Like taking Tyrion's line, "Those are brave men, let's go kill them," at the Battle of Blackwater. That's a random aside that he says to somebody. Putting it into his speech was like much better. "Those are brave men out there. Let's go kill them." Like it was much better. Like just little editing here and there can make things a lot better. Not to mention, there's a lot of great original lines in Game of Thrones. I mean, like we make peace with our enemies. That's why we call it making peace. Or we only make peace with our enemies. That's why we call it making peace. Like, that's a fucking brilliant line from the show, not the books, Like, there's a lot of stuff.
I know we're going off on a bunch of this stuff, like what the show did better. Do you mind if I throw one in there? Because I've always loved this line. It's Jorah Mormont in A Storm of Swords, Daenerys 2, and he says, there's a savage beast in every man, and when you hand that man a sword or a spear and send him forth to war, the beast stirs. That's the book.
Yeah.
The show, there's a beast in every man, and it stirs when you put a sword in his hand. Fucking cleans it right the fuck up. I love how cleaned up it was. Like, that's better. So and then we get to season 8 and nobody says anything clever anymore. The writing.
Right, and it's all silent. Right. That's the weird thing, is that we know I've almost gotten to the point with like looking back at D&D and being like, it's more that I'm disappointed in them because I knew they could do better.
Yes.
We saw them do better.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen them do better since. I quickly read Dan Weiss's book, and like it was okay, like they're good writers. It's just DB Weiss's book. They're good writers. They went to school for it. They know how to do it. And that's why it's so weird when they fuck up, right? Like
something happened behind the scenes. Like I don't know if they were constrained by George. A lot of people want to say they did their own thing, and that's what we originally thought. But again, as time went on, it seems like they were just trying to follow George's outline, and were too afraid to do their own thing. But again, it's complicated because they were following the outline of the books, and they were like fixing certain things up, and adding certain things that needed to be added. Like, you love that season 2 scene with Maester Luwin and Theon. You like that one. I love Tywin and Arya, where in the books, I believe it was Roose Bolton and Arya. So like, it's a very nuanced conversation that I don't think this fandom is ready to have, because you have so many people who see things in black and white, you know? Well, David Dan, he'll be dumb and dumber. And I'll admit, I'm guilty of that too. And I gotta stop being so black and white about this stuff, because it is complex.
Because also, like, going through the fanfic and, like, realizing the plot threads that George needs to tie up. And it's just, like, you have to sit down and spend hours and hours, like, figuring out, well, wait a minute, how would this work? How can we do that? And you realize that, like, when you're given just some random general outline, how are you going to make it work? And
are you saying that by doing the fanfic, you've developed some sympathies for Dave and Dan in the process?
Absolutely.
Shit! There you go.
Absolutely.
So what you're telling me is that every single person listening to this right now should try and do their own Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring fanfic to really understand how hard it was.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, like, if you're told that Brienne is on a quest to find Sansa and needs to find Sansa, but at the same time Brienne needs to kill Stannis to fulfill, like, her desire from A Clash of Kings, but she's on this quest for Sansa to fulfill her quest from A Feast for Crows, and Sansa and Brienne are both in the north there. And so is Stannis. Like, how are you going to make that all happen at once?
You don't have Brienne kill fucking Stannis. You just have him die.
You don't have Brienne fucking kill. You have her, like, you don't have her do the cake and eat it too. But now what if George told you that fucking outline?
Right.
Do you defy George?